Have you ever wondered why mega churches and most local churches have millions of dollars, but they cannot offer real solutions to the problems that people are going through? They cannot provide things like reliable shelter programs, reliable food programs, reliable medical programs, reliable education programs. I think it is because Christians dignify suffering. And how exactly do I know this? A few weeks ago, I came across this particular video, and in this video, this Christian brother called Nick was reacting to an interview between Kanye West and Big Boy. And in a segment of that interview, Kanye West was calling out the Christians' unwillingness to step out of their comfort zone, look for real solutions to their problems. Something that I think Nick found offensive because he proceeded to criticize Kanye by questioning where his allegiance lie. He said, why was Kanye happy to call himself a Christian and serve God when his life was perfect, but the moment his life started falling apart, Kanye West bailed out on God? And I was like, wait a minute, why would Nick want Kanye West to tolerate pain and suffering, yet Kanye had the means to end it? Then I realized Christians have been brainwashed into thinking that all pain and suffering was divine and meaningful. Therefore, in this video, I want us to discuss the relationship between faith and suffering, why Christians dignify suffering, and why this mindset can be very, very, very dangerous. So let us look at the relationship between faith and suffering. In Christianity, it is believed that suffering pushes people into faith because suffering causes people to ask tough questions like, who am I? What is happening to me? Why is this particular thing happening to me? Why is this particular thing happening to me at this particular time? And what can I do to end this particular thing? So in situations such as this, people are naturally guided into faith because faith provides a structure and a story behind the suffering, making the suffering more bearable. So in short, Christians don't believe that faith removes suffering. It just changes how we walk through it. Because when suffering creates the questions, faith provides the answers. And together, the two transforms the person. So that is the relationship between faith and suffering in Christianity. Why do Christians dignify suffering? The reason why Christians dignify suffering is because they deeply believe that suffering is the only experience that can separate chaff from the wheat effectively. They also believe that suffering is a transformative process. And since their Savior Jesus Christ suffered, they believe that they should also suffer. So they see suffering not as humiliation, but as the greatest form of imitation. Furthermore, to them, suffering is the very thing that grows and strengthens faith. Suffering produces compassion. Suffering reveals authenticity. Suffering shapes character, and suffering leads to eternal reward. So that is the reason why suffering is dignified in Christianity. Now, before we even discuss the consequences of this mindset, I just want to clarify something. That the reason why people go to church is not because their lives are perfect, but because parts of their lives are falling apart, or maybe their entire lives are collapsing. So people go to church to seek God to help with the weight of various responsibilities. Maybe it is responsibility that comes with family. Maybe it is responsibility that comes with education and studying. Maybe it is responsibility that comes with masculinity. Maybe it is responsibility that is associated with providing for other people. For some people, it is addiction. People are drowning in all sorts of addictions. Maybe it is porn addiction. Maybe it is sex addiction. Maybe it is alcohol addiction, gambling addiction. For some people, it is guilt. People have cheated on their partners. They are chronic liars. Or maybe they are responsible for why their families are falling apart. For some people, it is pleasure. So they want a way out of that lifestyle. For some people, it is general meaninglessness of life. So I don't think that people go to church because they necessarily like God. They go to church because they are hoping that the God that is being preached in these churches will be useful to them by reducing their suffering or ending it all together. People's lives are chaotic and they are looking for order. So it does not make sense to me for someone to run from the chaos of the world just to go into the church and tolerate them in the church. It doesn't make sense. And that is why I think Nick's criticism of Kanye was just nonsensical. Because you cannot criticize someone for bettering themselves, for getting themselves out of a tough situation. Finally, let us discuss the dangers of this particular mindset. You know, the main problem with joining churches that promote suffering-centered theology is because these people can teach you to romanticize suffering instead of solving it. You know, when people normalize situations that they should change or escape, that becomes a problem. When people normalize situations like abusive relationships, when people normalize poverty, that is dangerous to society. And when churches manage to brainwash their congregations to an extent that their members criticize and judge the members that walk away and better their lives outside the church and make those other members feel guilty, that becomes a big problem. And you know, this is how the churches teach people to normalize avoidable suffering. You know, situations like poverty, hunger, discrimination, you know, exploitation, mental health struggles. In summary, what I'm trying to say is that if you ever come across a pastor or a Christian who encourages you to tolerate pain and suffering, yet they live lavishly, or they don't have to tolerate the same thing, walk away from that church. Go find real solutions to your problems, because faith is not supposed to be used as a way to justify injustice, exploitation, poverty, abuse, and corruption. Suffering is not something you live through. Suffering is something you change. There is no dignity in suffering. There is no dignity in poverty. You should do everything in your power to get yourself out of difficult situations, because nobody's gonna do it for you. The pastors who are telling you that God is preparing you, that God has a plan for you, they don't get to live through what you're living through, okay? They don't want your life.